said, I'm not a risk officer. I shouldn't know the risk. Yeah, you the head of the department, you should. Okay, so everybody has to be on board. Okay, and each of these departments had to work hand in hand to get this enterprise-wide risk assessment completed and sent in. Okay, so the book goes on to talk about the role of the MLRO, and of course we know that the MLRO is a regulated function, which means you can send out a ad in the paper. We can decide that we want to hire Ms. Cox. However, the regulator has to approve Ms. Cox. And of course, like I said, they do a background check. They want your resume. They want you to have sufficient experience as well as sufficient education. Okay. And the big thing in ICA now is interpersonal skills, having that open door policy, making sure that you are approachable, because in the past, the compliance officer was seen as the police, audit was seen as the police, and we're here to write you up. And now we, as compliance professionals, should be seen as coaches, and we should have the right interpersonal skills and an open door policy where person feel comfortable that they can blow the whistle to us, or they can get good advice from us. Okay? And so it says the main responsibilities of the MLRO is to receive SPRs, evaluate them, and then decide if it's going to go to the FIU or not. What is a common problem with today is that when compliance makes no money for the business, and so therefore the institution does not want to invest any money into compliance. They invest all the money into sales. And so compliance saves the business from fines and being, reputational risk and what have you. However, most CEOs, they're looking at the bottom line. So when they plan this budget, the budget is heavily goes to sales, and they want a one-man band in compliance with an assistant, which does not work. And I think I told you all this story. One of these Fortune 500 Canadian banks, we went into audit, and when we got in there, we said, can we, get all the information on legal? And they said, speak to Gia. And we said on compliance, they said, speak to Gia. We said on AML, they said, speak to Gia. We said on corporate administration, they said, speak to Gia. So we said, well, we thought that Ms. Knowles was the coordinator for this audit. They say, Ms. Knowles is, but all of those are Gia's functions. And so we stopped the audit and we made them hire 3 senior persons to help Gia with all those hats that she was wearing. Okay? And so that's another common problem where compliance is so overwhelmed, they can't even make an educated decision because they're wearing too many hats. Okay? And some people like control. So, Gia was happy with all those positions because I have the most control. When we vote, I vote on behalf of 4 persons, but the desk wasn't effective at all. Okay? She could get nothing done because she was just overwhelmed from day to day with trying to, write board reports, answer questions, and make sure that a big bank was, it just didn't work. So we stopped the audit. They had to hire more persons just to help that one person. So please, when you see these ads in the paper and it's saying you must be compliance and legal and risk and AML, no. You should have an AML officer that's responsible for approving accounts, looking at the triggers, risk ratings, and day-to-day questions. You should then have a compliance officer that's strictly for regulatory reviews, liaising with the regulator. Certain reports have to be sent out monthly, policy and procedure review and stuff like that. So it has to be split. And again, this depends on the number of persons. Some offshore companies have 10 clients, $10 billion clients. So one person can do it. But if you have more than 100 clients, then you need more than one person. Okay? And a lot of businesses saying you have to be compliance and risk and AML. You shouldn't even be compliance and AML with more than 100 clients. Risk is a completely different position. However, it just falls in the lap of compliance. Another thing that has fell in the lack of compliance is CRS and FACA. Back in 2017, they said, but nobody knows anything about taxes, so compliance must go out there, learn the function, and then come back and train somebody. This now makes compliance operational. And compliance should never be operational. Compliance should never ever speak to customers. Wow. Okay? And so some compliance departments are still doing CRS and FACA 18, 19, 20, 21, 5 years after. Because the institution has not hired anybody to carry out this function. Okay? So please, you should not be operational. You should be an independent member, and you should be independent of the business, not functional, not operational at all. Okay? The next thing is, this is a big problem that Ms. Bullitt had the other day. The CEO said that you were going to report to me for administrative duty. Like if you want to go on vacation, you must get an approval from me for vacation or any HR related matters. But then you report to the board as the MLRO. And so I said, but sir, that's a conflict. I pulled the legislation, I showed him, and he said, well, no, that's just the way it is. I said, well, anyway, the regulator has to approve it. So the regulator then requested the organizational chart, and there was a dotted line to him, and he put in brackets for administrative purposes only. And so luckily, you know, we were duly regulated, which meant the Securities Commission and the central bank had to approve me. And so the Securities Commission immediately came back and said, Ms. Bullitt cannot be approved until this dotted line is removed. So he went, he's like, can I have an audience? I just want to tell you, well, Ms. Bullitt would need to let me know if she's going on vacation. She would need to let me know or whatever. So they said, no, vacation is an HR matter. If she needs to take a lunch hour or come late or do whatever, all of those are HR matters. She can discuss that with HR. She will not be approved until that dotted line is removed. Okay, and the central bank came back with the same thing. And the CEO was, I don't know, mad and calling people. Okay, they don't want any influence. They don't want my bonus to be, well, you want to approve these accounts, I need you to approve these accounts, Ms. Bullitt. So they don't want me to be intimidated. They don't want me to be coerced. Okay, so you should be completely independent, reporting to the board. And a lot of CEOs don't like that, especially where the CEO is like owner. He definitely wants you to report to him. Okay, so, and that causes a lot of intimidation. So make sure that you show them the law. If they remember, we are just to advise. You advise them, but if you are indeed still reporting to, and this is the head now, if there's a compliance department, then of course you reporting to compliance. Or whoever is the head of the department, in that entire department should reply, you know, reporting to the head, no CEO, no HR, no outside person of that department, and then the head reports to the board. That's how it works, just so that there is no negative influence. Okay, and that's a very serious thing, and people are not taking it serious, but thank God the regulators interjecting to control some of these CEOs. Okay, so make sure. The next thing, like I said, we're still too functional, we're too operational. We should never talk to customers, and we should not be doing functions, because what we do now is we create an imbalance where there's not a proper segregation of duties. And so if I am to ensure that the institution completes CRS and FACA by a certain due date, and I am doing CRS and FACA, am I not essentially the checker checking the checker?
Yep.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of positions where that is happening. So you have to advocate, you have to fight, you have to advise that, hey, this is a breach. This is not proper segregation. We should have a 4 eyes check. If I'm the reviewer, I cannot be the preparer. Okay, so yes.
Excuse me, in reference to the 4-eye check, that's on a company basis, or is that something that is mandatory?
No, it's not, it's best practice. because again, people like to be particular when it comes to policy, is what your company should have some policy in place for pre-verification and proper segregation of duties.
I
Okay?
wanted I wanted to list that as a monitoring system, but I don't see that in the book as something that is mandatory.
No, it ain't mandatory, but it is best practice because for errors and losses and mistakes, for we are human beings. So you put a 4-eye check because you don't make a mistake. You know, you normally don't see a mistake. You can't be the preparer and the verifier. That defeats the purpose, right? So that's why we say
Yes.
we need 4 eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So best practice, okay, and it wouldn't necessarily be in writing. Okay, so it goes on to say formulating the AML policy, and of course, in the AML policy, whatever, you know, it should mimic your regulator. It should be a carbon copy of what your regulator has, and should just include the products and services that you carry. So for instance, if your regulator talks about credit cards, but you don't offer credit cards, you don't need to have credit cards in it, okay? And again, you need to follow the regulator so you know when there are updates. So once the regulator has updates, you need to then update, okay? We had a big problem where the regulator prior to 2018 said a PEP is only a PEP till they leaves office, you know, till 1 year of leaving office. And then they removed that and they left it up to organizations to say, you know, choose, is a PEP always a PEP? Is it after 5 years of leaving office or is it after 10 years, right? And so you had to write that in the policy. And my institution decided that they were not going to write it in the policy. And we had some PEPs on board who had left office for 1 year, but they had still been like consulting and what have you. And so we got an audit note for that. Okay, so we had to update the policy and then we had to reassess those persons and label them as PEPs and carry out enhanced due diligence on them. Okay, so you have to follow, like I said, the updates to ensure that you're current with what the law says. And again, you are to then share this policy. It shouldn't be a secret. Everybody should be aware of it. This is what we consider an undesirable account. Another thing that we got written up for is when the law changed, it used to just be anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism, and then they added PF. So everywhere we had to change and add PF, proliferation financing. Okay, so good to follow the updates. It says overall the policy should have achieved the following: compliance with legislation, cooperation with the FIU and their law enforcement, compliance with the Banks and Trust Companies Act, and it's no longer Section 19, it's Section 77. Define the responsibilities and accountabilities within a company, acceptance of new business, company's approach to staff training, the statement of the company's attitude towards persistent non-compliance, staff recognition of the importance of prompt internal reporting of STRs. Okay, and again, there needs to be a training held just on the anti-money laundering policy. It needs to be in layman's terms. Everybody needs to be understand it. It needs to be shared. Okay, and then again, get persons on board. Can you identify any gaps? Again, if you work in the wiring department, you should know that the regulator states that everybody else has annual training once per year. But if you work in the wire department or with corresponding banking, you must have 2 trainings per year. Okay? And so if you're not having those 2 trainings per year and you work in the wiring department and it's not in your policy, you should know what the regulator states and you should be able to bring it to your organization's attention. Remember, compliance is everybody's business. Okay? It says once a policy is adopted by the board, compliance with the policy must be monitored and regulator reports sent to the board, senior management on the company's performance. The policy should be communicated to the staff and implemented. The policy should also include criteria for updating. Again, what I'm seeing across organizations when I go to audit is that their account opening forms, they do not have like an expiry date. One organization account opening form said 2003. So that means the law done been updated a couple times and your account opening forms ain't been updated. Like, how possible? So your account opening form should expire like every 10 years. There are W8s and W9s, and we talk the tax-related US forms, where the US law says that they expire every 3 years. So you have to make sure that you have a note, and everybody who's in the market is not in the market investing with an expired form. You could go to jail in the US for that. Okay, so it's important to go and look at the version date. Nothing should be saying 2003. Everything should be saying 2018 or 19. It should be current. It should be up to date. If a policy changes, you want to be able to identify what the changes are, because let's just say it was 2018, the policy updated, and the regulator came in 2019. You'll get written up for a lot of stuff because you didn't implement the new changes, you know, in your work. Suppose you used to get just one piece of ID. So the regulator or the auditor will pull out all these forms with one piece of ID, and not till after 2018, you started getting 2 pieces. Okay, so it's important to have a audit trail of what the changes in the policies are. So you can properly identify that at this particular date and time, this is what the law requires. But without that proper record of this is what the law requires now, or this is what the change, you can't remember what happened in 2018. And then remember, we need to retain these records for 5 years, or 7 if you report to the Securities Commission. Suppose you have to show up to court. You get all kind of, you know, fines for stuff with you at the time. The law did not state you had to do. That's why it was not done. But you will remember that. You might end up in jail. Okay. So all these things are best practice. Proper audit trail, proper documentation, making sure that all your forms, all your policy and procedures have expiry dates. Like I said, gone are the day when we can show up and we use a system that nobody knows how to use or is greatly deficient. Okay. You need to know your job function. If you're not qualified for it, please get in school, please take classes. You need sufficient experience and you need sufficient education. If you're in a department where everybody just comes straight out of high school and they don't plan to go no further, God help you. Okay? You need to ensure that your department is balanced. You don't need 5 CPAs in one finance department. Okay? You need 1 CPA, 1 legal background, 1 operational background. Okay? So that it is balanced. A lot of people just like to hire, CPA. And then you end up with 5 CPAs and they only know how to count. They don't know how to do anything else. Okay, so make sure that there's balance. Okay, and make sure they have the proper competencies for, to make the department work. Okay, any questions?
Not right now.
And again, there's no one size fits all approach. Metrics are very important. If you don't know how much customers you have, you don't know how much staff you need. If you don't know how much different jurisdictions you're dealing with, then you don't know how to properly organize your customers. If you don't know the commonalities, the age, all these things happen. Okay, like I said, when online banking came out in the retail world, it was a blast. Everybody wanted it. And so they came over the trust and they shoved it down our throats and they said, we sent out a letter to the customers. We didn't go out to them and ask them. We said, immediately, with immediate effect, we no longer have fax machines. We threw them all in the garbage. We no longer accept handwritten letters. And now you have to go and use online banking. And we lost almost 50% of our customers because in order to open an account with RBC Trust, it was $250,000. Then you had to have a network of 5 million. And if we looked at the dynamics of our customers, who had that money just to sit up in the bank? Retirees. So predominantly our customers was from 60 to 80. And so we got a lot of letters that said, handwritten letters that said, I've never used a computer in my life. So I'll have to go elsewhere. I only know how to use a fax machine. I haven't updated my passport from 1970, you know, stuff like that. Or I never had a passport. Okay, so are you gonna accommodate your customers, or are you gonna just lose them? And in the retail world, of course, you know, with the passports, you'll just drive these senior citizens crazy when you'll turn off the passport and you're just giving them a little piece of paper. In fact, on the senior citizen line, some banks had to bring that passport printer back or ask the teller to write it up because she swear you, the granny swear you thief of money if you don't write that up in that book. Correct? Any of y'all work in retail and y'all experience that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yes, well, fight for that.
Okay. My neighbor, she like 55. And I said, just, you know, she was like, I have to save my money till I get 1,500 to deposit it. So I was like, no, just go. She's due here. I was like, no, just go to the ATM. She said, oh, no. I don't. I was like, okay. So they're, I guess, keeping this money. Gotta reach 15 because they don't take deposits less than 1,500 now, or something to that effect. And she gets adamant. And she's 55, so to me, she's young. So, you know, please accommodate the senior citizens.
Oh, they're too stubborn.
Sorry?
Stubborn.
They covered? Okay, good. Yeah, but again, if you don't know that predominantly 30% of your business is senior citizens because you don't have the ages, then you really don't know what the needs of your customers are. Okay? Look at that big stick Royal Bank cost when they turn off the $20.
Oh, Lord.
No, for real. But like I say, they wouldn't have made that big mistake.
Are you forcing me to get $50 and I don't need $50?
Oh, okay, I only have $40 left out of my.
Miss Bullet, I don't even bank with them anymore, and I had a problem with that because you can't tell. $20 is the bare minimum. If I only have $30, how you want to tell me I can't get a little 20 to put a little gas in my car? Come on now.
BOB will give you $10. Okay.
Then say, where is your heart? Where's your compassion?
Yes. So again, like I say, these metrics, this analysis, all of that helps. Right. You know, you to make, you know, a decision that is beneficial for all. And without it, you know, you just making decision because it's popular, or, you know. So like I say, even with knowing how many customers you have, are they predominantly high, medium, or low? That would help you determine, do I need to hire junior staff or senior staff? Because if I have 200 customers and 150 are high risk, then I need to hire 2-3 high senior persons. I can't hire 2 junior persons and put the high risk on them. Okay, so please get into the, you know, getting the metrics together and making sure that you have proper information or enough information to make good decisions. Okay, and then let's work on this toxic corporate Bahamas, and let's start to show up to work and be appreciative of our jobs, be comfortable. Nobody wants to commit suicide. Nobody making, you know, it uncomfortable 8 hours a day. Let's try to make it as comfortable as possible, you know, and come to at least a medium where people at least don't hate their jobs, but they are happy or appreciative that they have a job and they show up every day and do their best. Okay, and it's each of us that's changing some of our bad traits, some of our bad attitudes, you know, just changing the way we look at things. And all of that will happen. Okay? And holding, you know, getting proper training. Some of these positions that we have to cause, you know, calls for a little bit more work. We can't want a position and then just be lazy and, oh, I don't have time for school, or I don't have time to be properly trained. No. If you were in a supervisory position, then you should have already taken supervisory skills. Okay, no matter which part of the institution you work in. So you would know how to treat people and know how to supervise them properly. Okay. Any questions or concerns?
Ms. Bullard.
Yes.
This is off track, but I just want you to feel my pain. I watched the first episode of Dirty Money, and that is where I work. That is exactly where I work. Anyway, we could continue.
Yeah, but keep watching. Just I really want y'all to watch the HSBC and the Mexican drug lords, and it's just very real. It's just very real. So you want to make sure that you have that awareness. There's some things, like you say, Gia, you saw your whole organization on TV.
Every detail to the T, and I could see that happening. If it were a case where it were to go to court, I can see the powers that be saying the exact same thing.
But Gia, make sure you know your job description. Make sure you can talk your way out of it.
I got my paper trail too.
Thank you. Protect yourself. And that's the only way you can stay out of jail now, is to be able to say that I did follow procedure, I have my paper trail, I advise, and you know, it's not my decision, blah, blah, blah. There you go. And then I blew the whistle when it was time to. Okay, don't be like them 4,500 people that get fired from Wells Fargo. Okay. Any questions or concerns?
No, ma'am.
No?
I do. Can you please confirm the compliance with section 19? You said it's changed to 77?
Yeah, 77 it updated. I think this book is 218 or 219, and in 2020, the Bankers and Trust Act updated, and they changed it from section 19 to section 77 on confidentiality. That's our duty of confidentiality.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look it up, look for the 2020 version, 2021 update. Yep.
That's a 2021 update of what others we looking at?
All right, one more time.
The Bankers and Trust Act.
Okay.
Okay.
That's where they talk about the duty of confidentiality.
Yeah, that changed to 77, right?
Yeah. And that was a problem that I had in my firm. My firm in the account opening documentation said, you must sign that you agree to section 19 of the Bankers and Trust Act, blah, 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 and then it changed. And so, yeah. So what do you do with all those expired, you know, the law changed. So now your forms now have to be updated to reflect the right law. And so you shouldn't really quote, you know, an act, you just say with Bahamian law, right, and then list all the laws, because the sections could change. And so, yeah, we had that experience. Okay, and then you should know within your account opening forms where it talks about express consent for you to share information, where it talks about confidentiality, where it says how many days you're allowed to hold somebody's funds, where it's 3 days because Royal Bank Zone was on the back of its signature card, but nobody ever read it, you know? And like I say, some of us do work in offshore where we have a 45-page document and we don't know if it says we could hold it for 30 days or 3 days or whatever. So all of these things are important. Okay, so make sure that you know. Okay, any questions or concerns? Okay, guys, so this was short and sweet, but I'm glad that you'll have some extra time for, to get together in your groups. Next week is the review class. And then, of course, the following week, November 3rd, is the final exam. It's in person. Ms. Keane will be expecting you at the Institute. Please only take your keys and a pen, and we'll discuss that next week. So next week, I sent out the review sheet early. Everybody is in a group. Please get with your group member, and it's only going to be as effective as you make it. If you show up and you don't have any information to give us, then your classmates suffer. Okay, so please be fair to everybody in the class and do your research and come prepared to answer the questions properly and come prepared to have dialogue. Okay, but if you show up and say, oh, I never meet up with my member, I didn't have time, all of this, and then your classmate suffers because Ms. Bullitt isn't sitting an exam on November 3rd. Okay, so please do your best to get some extra time right now to make sure that you can answer these questions properly.
Ms. Bullitt, you saw what I messaged you about. I can't remember my team member's last name, but I know her name is Latoya, because I had messaged her and she said that she was supposed to message you in respect to dropping the class. I mean, I did the assignment and I can deliver it on my own, but I'm just saying.
Okay, she didn't message me. So it's good that you have the information.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so thank you for that. So we'll look forward to, whatever you share with us next week. And remember, it's for your benefit. Yes, Priya?
Welcome us to the exam. You're not going to be there?
Sorry?
Ms. Bullitt, you're not going to welcome us to the exam?
If I'm not going to welcome you to the exam.
Yeah, you said, oh, Ms. Dean is going to be there.
I don't think I ever seen Ms. Bullitt before.
Yeah, Ms. Bullitt isn't in the office. I'm not in the office, so welcome, Avery. Welcome. Welcome. And like I said, if you on this journey, Avery, are you on this journey?
Straight through. Yeah.
Okay, but we won't go nowhere. You can see Ms. Bullitt and I see you. You can be fine. Priya, what you saying?
I was gonna ask if you got my makeup essay.
You sent it? You sent it?
Yeah, I sent it. Yesterday.
Okay, so I can look at it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and yes, if any of you have redos or makeup, make sure you all send it in. Anybody else out there?
I sent mine in, but I never get a response back.
You sure? Because I'm waiting on yours.
You sure? Oh yeah, she sent mine, Ms. Bullitt. I sent when you respond by sending that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well I can look for that because I know I was waiting a while for yours. Okay.
I'll
so
forward
I look
it
for
back
Bria.
to you.
I'm making a note. Yeah, forward it back to me so it'll be at the top of my email.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Bullitt, am I in good standing?
Charles, Sean, I hope so. Let me see if you want it. Because Ms. Bullitt's the next right up, right?
I already give you my newspaper.
Right.
I already gave you I went to Kawana's thing.
Yeah, I have Sean on 2 lists, and let me see if Sean have homework. Yes. Yes, Shauna, so you good.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Good.
Well, that means you gotta go through everybody on that.
Okay, let me tell you. I have Renita. This is for the 5% in the civic organization. I have Renita, Shatisha, Gia, Shauna, Carrie, Bria, Roel, Geraldo, Latoya, Nicolette, Shalisa, Bria Butler, Shamara, Demetria, Latoya, Avery, Alicia, Lanique, and who is Alton?
Shavana.
Shavana Alton. Okay. Yeah. And then for newspaper, I have Shauna, Bria, Shavana, Hasty, Nicolette, Shalisa, Shamara, Alicia, Bria, Leticia, Geraldo, Gia, Diasman, Carrie, Bria, Geraldo, Renita, Latoya. So Diasman, I don't have you for civic organization.
Miss Bullet, you called my name?
Now, y'all don't just speak Miss Bullet one at a time.
Miss Bullet, Hannah, did you call my name for newspaper?
Let me see.
You won't call
Hannah for newspaper.
Okay.
What about Demetria?
Renita, yes, I got Renita for newspaper.
What about Demetria? I talked about excise tax with the past report. That's what I talked about in the newspaper article.
Okay, I just add you.
Okay, all right.
See why I asked?
Did you call me for civic organization?
Hasty, let's see. Nope.
You forget when I tell you I've been in latitudes and we was talking about technology and how it's not, how it could be used in a good way and a bad way. You just have to monitor it.
Okay, you're at it. Who else? Anybody else? Everybody good? Okay.
I put newspaper to it, didn't I?
Let me see if I have a brief newspaper.
I was talking about the that road is being redirected. Gladstone Road.
Okay. I added a brief. Okay. Who else? Anybody else?
Well, I forward the email back to you.
Okay. So hopefully it's on top. Okay. Well, in Bria, you say you had sent it already.
Yes.
Okay, Geraldo, that didn't come through yet. I guess we do. Okay, it's true. Okay, I have it on top. Okay, so Bria and Geraldo, I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. So, okay, guys, look at the classwork, get together with your teammate, and please come fully prepared next week so we can have provocative discussions and we can get good information for the exam.
Okay.
All right. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Okay.
You too.
Good night.
Good night.